Welcome back to Magic Hour Podcast, everyone. I'm your host, Taylor Page.
And I'm Claire. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone.
It's the May listener question episodes, one of my favorites. I seriously love doing these episodes. I love connecting with all of you guys. And remember, we say this a lot, but if you would send me a question in DM, that is probably a perfect listener question. So you can email them to us at contact@magichourpod.com.
Yes, it's such a joy receiving your emails and your questions. They're also thoughtful and interesting. And I know that sharing them on the pod will help so many more people. So if it's something that you're curious about, chances are other people will resonate with it too. So send them in. And thank you so much to everyone who's emailed in. If we don't get to your question today, it's just because there were so many amazing ones, and we'll get to it on another episode for sure.
Absolutely. Before we get into the listener questions, let's do the third installment of our witchy book recommendations. And this is a book that really means so much to me. It's Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. This is the book. I found this book when I was about 25. I think it came into my life pre-Saturn return. And she even says in the book, if you read this in a faster time period than 3 to 5 years, you're not reading it right. And it took me 10 years to read this book because this is a very dense book because it's so textured and layered, and it examines the wildness of the female psyche through story and fairy tales and myth. And it's helping us remember the parts of ourselves that have been lost and basically rewild and run with the wolves. And in the very first chapter, there is this story that there's this bone collector woman, and she's going in the forest and she collects these bones and she puts them together in this way. And she sings over them, sings over the bones in front of the fire. And a wolf springs up from the bones and starts to run freely through the forest. And then the wolf turns into a woman and runs into the forest. And when I first read that story, it's the very first part of the book, full sobbing, like it touched some part of me. And it just shows how we're in this moment where each episode of Magic Hour, each time we work on ourselves, each time we meditate and sit with our guides, we're recollecting a part of our bones. We're reconnecting to a part of ourselves, and we're reanimating this wild part of ourselves that's been hunted and condemned and demonized and trapped. And so this book is for anybody that feels like, oh, I know there's more to femininity and womanhood and life and fulfillment. It's such a rich, beautiful book, and it connects to such deep parts of our psyche. And there are just beautiful stories. And I feel like it's a really good book for bibliomancy as well. I think that our guides can work so much through a book like this because we come to it when we're lost or we need guidance. And you can just say, what do you want me to know? And open to the story that will help you most right now. And so it's just such a powerful tool. It takes a really long time to read and it's really dense, but in the most beautiful way. It's because it's not light and fluffy. It's meant to be contemplated. It's meant to really stimulate our reflection.
I'm so excited to check it out. I feel like it's exactly what I'm connecting to in myself in this moment of that rewilding. Especially as women, I feel like we're told what to be and how to be and asked to be small and unassuming and not take up space, and connecting back to this wild part of myself that is dancing with abandon on the shores of creation, like connecting to my wild, free animal, my wild, free goddess energy. It's just such a good feeling. I actually was gifted it many years ago, and I don't think I was ready because I was like, ooh, this is dense. And I think I gave it away because I was like, I don't know. And so it's really beautiful that it's come back around in this moment where I'm like, oh, clearly I'm ready for it now.
And that's exactly the type of book that it is. I bought it at 25, but I think I didn't really dive deep into it until I was in my Saturn return. So it is the type of book that somebody can tell you about, but you have to be really ready and called to start reading it because it is like a portal of initiation in itself. And it's so powerful. And honestly, I need to revisit it because it's been a long time since I've read it. And thinking back, she did say it took her 10 years to write it. And I think she said it should take you at least 3 years to read it. It is the type of book that it's always there in this way. And like the vibration of the book on a subconscious level, we can understand, whoa, this is going to change everything when we read it. It's like the most powerful crystal in the world. It's going to activate change when we work with it. And so I think that we can feel sometimes like I'm not ready to open that can of worms, but I think right now is such a powerful moment to open it.
Yeah. And I loved what you said about the bibliomancy element of it, because I'm finding that's happening for me in so many different ways in my life, even with social media sometimes, where like I'll go to my phone, which I don't love, that's my habit, and pick it up. And the post that will come up will be something that's exactly what I needed to hear in that moment, or some sign I see on the road, or like the sentence in the book I pick up. And it's just so cool to think that our guides and angels can utilize absolutely every element of this experience to get their love and support and messages to us. And I think being on this journey with you and Magic Hour and the whole hummingbird community, I notice it more and more, which was your whole idea of doing this, was like, let's tune in and really notice. And wow, I am seeing it so much more. It's been so exciting and fulfilling.
Yay. I know. I mean, we're 50 plus episodes in. So I would love for you guys to write in. Are you noticing more magic like Claire's talking about? Because that is the mission statement of the show, to start to teach us where to look for the magic, both within and without, above and below. So it's just so exciting. And I think these witchy book recommendations are everything, of course, on the podcast is optional, but I think it's just another place where so much more magic can come through. And it's so true what you said too, that it doesn't reach you until you're ready, because a lot of things, even Magic Hour podcast, let me know, you guys, maybe there are people in your life that you're like, you would love listening to Magic Hour, and there's just some resistance there. It's like, until you are ready to really go on this path of transformation and creation and rebirth, there's this subtle resistance to anything that would ask you to shake things up and break things up and look at things in a new way. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. And I love the stories. We've had several people reach out saying, I stumbled upon this podcast, or someone referred me to this podcast. And I just love the path of it connecting to you in that way, of something that you stumble upon and then is this portal to your growth. It's like there are no accidents with that. The messages find us. And even if they find us, like that book found me many years ago, and I was like, I don't know about this. And now many years later, because of that, hearing about it again, it's an even stronger pull to discover it and connect with it. So it's like, even when the kernels or the breadcrumbs come to you and you might be like, I don't know what to do with this, and you move along, that still is part of you discovering it.
Yes, it goes back to that message that you'll never miss a message that's meant for you. Your guides will never give up on getting you that message. And I love what you said too about social media being a vehicle for messages, because it very much can be. I find our angels and guides work a lot through technology. Even the way Ari and I matched with each other on Bumble was so magical, because he only was on the dating app for about 3 weeks. And it was in the same window that I drove home for the first time during COVID to Ojai. And I passed by his hometown and we got in each other's algorithm. Before that, he was out of my radius. So there's so many ways that our angels and guides work through technology. And I think sometimes there can be a stigma around that, but they adapt. Like our guides are creating new energetic strategies in their world, just as we are here on Earth. And it's all this exciting co-creation.
Yeah. You know, I think we can feel like technology is separate from us because it's human made and it isn't naturally occurring, I suppose. But in a larger sense, everything that is a part of this existence is technically naturally occurring because it flows from one naturally occurring element into the next. Like we are naturally occurring and we've created through our minds and ideas technology. So it is an extension of us and a part of the fabric of this unknowable experience. So it makes total sense that it would be another tool for our guides to utilize. And especially when we start looking at it in that way, I think it can really open up for us because it's kind of what you talk about too, about agreeing with signs for your guides, knowing, okay, this will be my sign or this angel number communicates in that way. So if you say like, I could get messages this way too, then they will absolutely know to send you messages in that way.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we can shoot ourselves in the foot by being like, I was actually just having this conversation with my mediumship mentor, and she was asking me, what do you think about Laura Lynn Jackson's Signs book? And I was like, I love it. I think it's great. And she was like, what do you think about her idea there that it has to be like one specific sign? And we both agreed, while that one specific sign can be a beautiful tool, it shouldn't be the only way that you feel connected. Because I think sometimes there's this idea of, if you don't show me an elephant in a pink tutu, that means you're not here. And then magical things can happen where they get an elephant to a pink tutu with you. But sometimes there aren't the conducive conditions to send that. And it doesn't mean that they're not with you. So our loved ones send us a lot of signs. And sometimes in mediumship readings, they'll tell me the sign that's already established, but they'll also tell me like, these are my signs, like these are more signs. And someone was telling me like, yeah, I was a big cigar smoker, and I'll send her cigar smoke. And she was like, oh my God, I was just smelling cigar smoke 2 days ago. And I was like, that's him. He's getting your attention with that cigar smoke smell when it's out of nowhere. So I think the more we expand our parameters, it doesn't mean it's less magical. It means it's more magical. So give your team and the people that love you on the other side more momentum to work with, because it just creates more magic. And I think that sometimes that propensity to be like, it has to fit this little mold to mean it's really from them, comes more from a fear-based scarcity place, where it's like, I need it to be proven to me that it is. And while I can understand that, it can be proven in so many ways that they're really here. As a medium and as an intuitive, information that comes through to me exists on a certain frequency wavelength. And sometimes I'm not on the frequency wavelength to get that exact message. So if you go in like, it has to look just like this, I might not be on that wavelength. You might not be on that wavelength, and that message or that sign is missed, but I am on the wavelength for XYZ pieces of evidence and messages. So when we leave it open a little bit more, I think it's a good thing for more magic to come through.
Yeah. And I think it's a perfect parallel to what we always talk about life, about thinking we have the answers and that we know what's best, and trying to control our experience with what we think should be happening or the direction we think it should go. And when we can detach a little bit more, open up to the unknown, there's so many other amazing gifts we hadn't even thought about, we didn't even know existed. So I think in this way as well, opening yourself up to, of course, the signs that you feel you've established, and to something even more amazing you haven't even thought about yet.
Absolutely. So, so true. Let's go into the listener questions.
Okay, I'm so excited. You guys sent in so many good ones. Our first one is a story. Dear Taylor, I had a reading in November, and at the time, much of what you said didn't resonate with me. I originally booked the session seeking guidance on my failing marriage. You mentioned that my husband needed physical intimacy while I needed emotional connection, and that bridging this gap was key to repairing our relationship. Other aspects of the reading, like the people who came through or the idea that my son needed music to heal, didn't make sense to me. Because of that, I dismissed much of what you said, including your insight about my marriage. Fast forward to now, and I realize you are absolutely right about the physical intimacy. Though he never voiced it, my husband believed our marriage was over because we were no longer intimate. In his mind, we were simply coexisting as a family, and I was just his friend. Ultimately, this led him to seek sex outside our marriage. Looking back, I wish I had truly listened. I regret letting the parts that didn't immediately make sense keep me from absorbing the message that did. More than anything, I wish I had a clearer understanding of why this is happening and whether it's part of my path. Thank you for the work you do. I hope you share this so others don't dismiss valuable insights just because they don't yet see how everything fits together.
I know this one needs to stay anonymous. So thank you so much for sending this in anonymous. And there's so much I want to say about it. First of all, as a reader, we can tell there can be a moment in the reading where we see we've lost you, even though what's coming through to us is the truth of what's coming through and what needs to be shared, we can see when it doesn't resonate or when it's not what you wanted to hear. And there's almost this wall that comes up and then nothing else is really absorbed. And that's very difficult as a reader. I would actually say about 29 out of 30 readings, it's like amazing, connected, beautiful. They got what they needed. We're moving forward. But then there is that small percentage where it's like, oh man, you really wanted me to say XYZ and I just couldn't say that. And so I first of all really want to commend the generosity, vulnerability, and kindness of this person to send this in. I really do want to say too that just because you don't take something from a reading with me does not mean you're on some wrong timeline now that will never get better. So I really want to say that every single moment is a chance to make a new choice. Your angels and guides are not going to stop sending you signs and markers and validation. Even if you didn't take the invitation that was given during a session with me, it doesn't mean that they won't spend a million different invitations working to help you get the message. So that's what I want to say. It's never too late to choose to listen. It is never too late to choose to listen. And so this is what happens. In a reading, I would say 80% of what I'm saying should make sense to you. But there's going to be 20% that might not make sense at the time. And that's why I record the sessions. And when you go back and listen to it, it will make sense. And the problem is when you're in a session and you shut down because what I'm saying is part of the 20%, and you're like, then this isn't true, this isn't right, I can't hear this. Or in this case, I think the physical intimacy part did make sense to her, but maybe she didn't want to hear it at the time. Then you don't go back and watch the replay because you dismiss everything. But if you went back even a month later and rewatched the session, so much of what came through would either take on a new shape or have a different meaning. So if 80% should make sense here and now, 20-ish% might not make sense. I also want to say that in my sessions personally, the entire time I am checking in to make sure things make sense. I am always asking, can you understand that? Can you understand that? And it's interesting because sometimes people are like, yes, 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 but I can see that they don't. But I can't push past a certain point. It's really tough. And I think too, she said something really interesting that was the messages that didn't immediately make sense kept me from listening to the messages that did. And the message that immediately resonates with you, that's because it's for right now. It resonates with you. And you can take that as evidence because I couldn't have known that about her and her husband. And she got that evidence that could be true and validated. That brings a level of like, okay, these are really my angels speaking to me. And then say I give a message like, your son needs music to heal. And keep in mind, it's like when you're an author and you see everything so clearly, but then you forget, oh, the readers aren't seeing everything that I'm seeing. So I have to take the time to really explain the details of what I mean. And sometimes as a reader, we can fall into the same trap where I'm like, oh, I see your son and he's in the dark playing video games all night. And actually he has a creative streak and there's a grandfather in spirit who was a guitarist. But then I'm like, your son needs music. And so I think that that's where if you're in a reading and somebody says something and you're like, this makes no sense to me, instead of shutting down and being like, then all of this isn't true, ask questions. Like readers actually really appreciate that. I want to know if this isn't making sense because this hour is for you. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And when this email came through, I was very touched because I'm in this moment where I'm creating my mentorship container. And I asked my angels and guides, please send me the type of clients that I'm going to learn the most from to share the valuable information. Because at this point, being on such a long wait list and having people that are regular clients and also having people that are familiar with my work, I get less of these 1 out of 30 readings where it's like, I just don't understand anything. People are usually coming to me open and we have a good connection and the readings in general go really well. So I had an experience where I had 2 client sessions in a row, which is so brutal, where it was exactly this, where it was they wanted me to tell them that something was going to happen for them, and I couldn't tell them because that's not what I was getting. And what I could talk about was XYZ, and we could go into other things, and I was definitely connected. I was definitely bringing through things I couldn't have known, but I just saw like a shield come over them in the session because it wasn't the outcome that they were most attached to. And so I was feeling like, okay, this was obviously necessary for me to get the practices as a professional in this space that I will teach my mentees on what to do in this scenario. But it still sucks as a reader because you really freaking care about your clients and you want them to get the most out of their session. Even if they're like, okay, some made sense and some doesn't, but I'm holding on to faith that the stuff that doesn't will make sense. That's perfect. And then do you know how many times I get emails just like this one that's like, you said this, and then that makes so much sense now. And that's the way our angels and guides like to work because it's so magical. It's things that we couldn't have known. It's like more evidence that they're showing us in the future too. The reading is the gift that keeps on giving sometimes. And so I had 2 of those readings back to back. I was feeling like, oh, okay, I don't like this feeling. I don't like feeling like my clients aren't happy. And I don't like that because I care so much. And then this email came in and it was like exactly somebody that was in that mindset months and months ago who's like, I wish I would have listened because the messages that didn't immediately make sense make more sense. And the one message that really resonated, like my husband did seek intimacy outside of the marriage. And I told her, like, I'm so grateful for you for emailing me because as a reader, I just had 2 of these sessions back to back. And what I said is, please ask questions. Please, if we ever connect again, first of all, know that you don't have to connect, that you're still supported, you're still guided, and you will be led in this time period, no matter what decision that you make. But secondly, that if you're in a session with a reader and things aren't making sense, speak up because we might need to clarify more things that are obvious on our end because we're in the experience of receiving the message that might not be obvious to you, or we're using jargon that you're not used to hearing and you're like, what does that even mean? So speak up, and I promise you, we love it when you do. So after that day of 2 back-to-back readings like that, I had this email in the morning, and then there was another person that I read for last year. And she was asking when she would get pregnant. And I don't usually do predictive stuff, but it did come through to me early 2025. I see you pregnant. So right after our session, she got pregnant. And I was like, I guess I must have been wrong about it being early 2025. And it was another one of those kind of like interesting, icky feelings like, oh, I don't like how that feels. But then she lost the baby. And now fast forward to early 2025, she's pregnant. The baby is a lot healthier and it's going longer. And I saw that she was pregnant in early 2025 at the same time that I got this email on the same day. So it was a moment where my guides were like, no, you're accurate and you're true. And sometimes either people aren't ready to receive the message or aren't in the right headspace to go into a reading, or might be in a place where they needed therapy, not a reading, which I say all the time. Sometimes readings aren't the right healing modality. Sometimes you actually need therapy because if you're in a place where not hearing what you want to hear triggers you to a point where you can no longer take in information from the session, therapy is what's needed. That's why with mediumship, when there's a tragic loss or any type of passing that's so grief-filled, you need therapy and grief coaching before you're ready for a mediumship reading, or else you'll be triggered with grief the entire session and won't be able to take in what's actually being said. So I think that that's a combination too, where sometimes reading isn't the right modality of healing. But I just found it so synchronistic the way that my guides were almost holding my hand, because no matter how long you do this work, how connected you are, how much beautiful feedback you have, there's this negativity bias where we go to the one person who didn't have a good experience, not the 30 that had an amazing experience. And so this listener, this person and client who sent this message in meant so much to me. And then getting the validation of the early 2025 pregnancy that I saw also meant a lot to me. And that's not to say if I didn't see a pregnancy in a reading that you're going to lose your baby. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying there are things that I can miss for sure or misinterpret. I'm a human, but I'm just saying that was an example of I was so right. And there was another time where there was a client who in the session the whole time was like, yes, 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 yes to everything. And then after was like, no, 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 and wrote me this long email. And it was really in the beginning of my practice. And I was so jarred by it. You can feel when you're really connected to truth. And in the session, she asked about her living situation. I said, I saw her moving out in October, and that freaked her out because she was living with somebody and October was like the end of the lease. And she felt like it meant that they were going to break up and she didn't want to hear that. And so she wrote me like 2 years later and was like, everything you said was right. I wasn't ready to hear it. I did move out in October. We did break up. And so this is just a reminder to readers out there that we can't tell people what we aren't getting. And we have to stand true in our connection with our angels, our guides, and the universe. And I don't even do a lot of predictive stuff. And that to me wasn't even predictive. She was asking when it felt like the right time to move. And I felt October. So it wasn't saying you're going to move out in October and this is going to happen. I was like, October is what I'm feeling for a move, which I guess is like dancing on the edge of prediction. But anyway, I just feel like the message has been hammered to me over and over and over of when you're in that place where you're connected and you're getting information that you couldn't have known. Sometimes the reading, it's not just about the reader. The reading is also about the sitter because the sitter brings energy to it too. It's a co-creation and we can't do it on our own. So if you're with somebody who's closed or triggered or not ready to hear things, stay true in your magic and hold space for however you can be of service to them. And so this email really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, all of that is so helpful and eye-opening and interesting on so many levels. There's so much I want to say about it. But I think as someone who doesn't give readings, but who is more in a position to receive readings, I give readings to myself. But I think there was a lot of good information for us on that side of things too. I think sometimes we want to get a reading when we're really struggling or we're feeling really lost or we're having a hard time and we need guidance. And I think it can be hard then when we go into the reading, and I've been guilty of this myself, where I want to hear all your dreams are going to come true this year. All the things you want are going to happen for you this year. And I think that's a tricky thing because when we take a step further back from it, the goals and dreams of our heart might be serviced by something in the short term that feels like the opposite, like a breakup. You know, what we might want is a deep, passionate, cosmic love. And we've decided it's got to be with this person. And it absolutely is not going to be the type of love that you are searching for with this person. But we've decided, but I love them and there's these good things about them. So it's got to be them. And then we go into a reading and we want to hear from our angels and guides. Yeah. It's them. And all your dreams that you're hoping for are going to happen with them. But the larger message is actually that to fulfill that dream of your heart, you are going to need to move past this person because there's someone else who's much more in alignment. Now, that's not something you want to hear in that moment, but it's actually the very thing that you want, just dressed up in a different way. And so I think as hard as this is, and I'm telling myself this as well as I'm saying this, but going into a reading, staying open to the fact that, like we were saying earlier, we don't have all the information. So if what we really want is our greatest happiness, then this information that's coming through is in service of that, even if it doesn't quite make sense in this moment. And trusting that maybe I don't know what's right. And this information doesn't fully make sense because it's a greater picture that I can't know right now. And trying to have that kind of curiosity and openness with the information instead of using it as a way to validate the things that we're hoping are true. And I think that goes back to what you're saying too. Like, I think in those moments, something like therapy or the work that Rachel does, who we've had as a guest, who's so amazing, that type of stuff can help us process the pain of those things. And I think a reading is there to help us open to the directional shift that we might not be able to see for ourselves.
Absolutely. And yeah, Rachel, check her out, episode 211. There is something about letting your lowercase m mind get out of the way when you're in a situation with a reading and letting the uppercase m take it in and letting it flow through your heart and seeing what resonates with you. And if you're in a situation where it doesn't make sense, ask clarifying questions, get more clear. Like, did you actually mean this? Or what does this mean about that? And then eventually save the reading and re-listen to it even a month later. And I promise you, things will make sense that didn't before.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I wish that I had recorded so many of our readings in the past because we weren't really doing that. I would like furiously take notes, but it's not the same. And I'd be so curious to revisit those now, especially as I've evolved and changed and see what nuggets were even for this moment here. And also something I wanted to say to the person who wrote in as well. I know in this moment, you might be feeling regret, like I should have listened to this message. But I truly believe that we are on a path that's unfolding for our greatest good. And maybe listening to Taylor's message would have shifted things within the marriage, but maybe what really needed to happen was this bigger shift and this bigger understanding that this wasn't in alignment anymore, because it wasn't in alignment when you reached out for the reading. There was clearly something that wasn't feeling right on both of your ends. And maybe you could have shifted within yourself to fix it, but maybe that wasn't what was in the best alignment for your journey to find a love that truly feels lit up, where it doesn't maybe feel forced to try and create that intimacy, where that intimacy just flows naturally and doesn't feel like something you have to actively make happen. That's just something I'm throwing out there. Like, I have a friend who just went through a pretty big breakup, and on paper it might be like, oh no, that's not a good thing, but from a greater standpoint, I think it's the best thing for both of them. And so having that broader view of it all, of sometimes things are hard and they're still in service of us, like they're happening for us, not to us. And so we don't need to feel regret about it. It's just information of how we can connect deeper to ourselves and a path that is in alignment with us.
Absolutely. So true. It's like, that's what I was hinting at. You'll never miss what's meant for you. They're always course correcting and helping you. So trust that. It doesn't just have to be in a reading with me. They're always speaking to you. So trust that, trust that, trust that.
Well, yes, trust that. And let's move on to another one. Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay. I absolutely love this one. I don't have the name on this one, so maybe it also wanted to feel anonymous. So we'll go with that. Taylor and Claire, I love the Magic Hour podcast. I'm a Taurus sun, Aquarius moon, and Scorpio rising, and in my remembering. And so much of your work resonates with me. I don't often hear about Tauruses being mediums or psychics, or even specifically very intuitive. Is it my Aquarius moon? But I know I am making a connection with spirit, noticing synchronicities and writing them down, listening to my intuition, and even listening to my children's needs on a deeper level, especially with my youngest daughter, also a Taurus, but Virgo rising and Libra moon, who is still in her wild witchling childhood and I hope never forgets. My question: does spirit give you insights into helping our children avoid the forgetting, or is it just something they have to go through? My daughter is 10 and is noticing how her classmates no longer believe in fairies or want to make potions or enjoy fantasy and fairy tales as she does. She doesn't really have any close friends, actually, which is another struggle for her. She has so much compassion and empathy, too much for the classroom at times. And she's so connected with animals, but has a hard time finding honest and sincere friends who understand her. My heart breaks to see her struggle. Is there anything I can do to give her confidence and see that she is on a truer path to happiness and fulfillment by being true to herself?
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for these questions. The first thing I want to say is about the thing she said about Tauruses never being mentioned as psychic. Never forget that Taurus is the sister sign of Scorpio. So earth signs are the sister signs to the water signs. Every single sign has their own intuitive potential. And I think Taurus, as a ruler of the physical body, has high clairsentience, like physical body messages for sure. It might be part of the entryway. Not that the Aquarius moon isn't super psychic, because it definitely is. And that's claircognizance and like knowing and just downloads. But never forget that the earth signs are the sister signs to the water signs, and that that's its own intuitive network. Capricorn is another one that never gets mentioned, but in ancient astrology, you would not be considered a serious person business-wise as a psychic if you did not have Sirius Capricorn in your birth chart, which is really funny because my midheaven is ruled by Capricorn. And I think Virgo is one of the most psychic signs. So I think that sometimes the earth signs can get so misunderstood in terms of over-identifying with productivity and capitalism and goals and production and all of these things. But there's definitely a deeper wisdom and spirituality and psychic ability with the earth signs too. So never forget that, because there's just a direct connection to the land, and the land is alive and full of spirit. So beautiful. First of all, I just want to go back and define some of these terms that she used in the email, because they're from my Healing the Witch Wound workshop. And so not everybody will be familiar with them, although please take the workshop because it is so important. It's such important information. And what she's referencing in this question is my modern witch's journey. And it basically starts with the wild witchling of childhood. And I won't go too deep into this. I speak about it a lot on episode 103. But the wild witchling of childhood is just like alive and well and magical and connected to spirit and source. And then we go into the forgetting. And the forgetting is what happens when we are in society and being inundated with messages and all of these things, and we forget the truth of who we really are. And then we hear the call calling us back, sort of like we were talking about with women who run with the wolves. The call comes usually as a hunger for knowledge, new ideas being placed, breakups, endings, rock bottom moments. Even this interesting synchronicity here with this anonymous email is like that might have been a call, a wake up call in some way to a different path. So the call can come in different forms, but it's a shake up and a wake up that leads us to the remembering, and the remembering leads us to the wise one. So this listener is saying that she's in her remembering and that her daughter is in her wild witchling of childhood, and she wants to help her avoid the forgetting. And so there's quite a few things to say. First of all, I think it's no accident that she chose a mom that's in her remembering. I think that that's so beautiful. And I think that a lot of us chose parents that were in there remembering. Like I chose a mom that was in her remembering, but my mom also didn't have the same access to education around this topic. I think we've evolved a lot in the age of social media, and it makes it more accessible to not go into the forgetting. For example, when I had nightmares or I felt like I was feeling negative energies in my house, I didn't know how to verbalize that. And my mom wouldn't really know to the level that I know now of how to talk about that. So I think even you having access to this information is such a big part of it. I think one of the most important things is that when we are on an intuitive journey, and especially when we're kids, we can feel isolated in our experience because we don't realize that so many people are having these experiences. And I think that sense of isolation can lead to an expedited forgetting because we don't realize the magic, the gift, how tapped in we are. And so I think encouraging language around spiritual gifts is so important. Talking about, oh, what did you feel about that? Or how did you know that? Or what did you see? Or what did you dream about? Or why do you like this crystal? Things like that to just get them talking about it, I think is really great because it's sort of in the same way that when an idea lives in our head, we're like, we'll remember this, we'll remember this, we'll remember this. But when we don't actually talk about it or write it down or bring it into the physical world, we forget it immediately. And the spiritual exists on this same subtle energetic level plane as the imagination. So if we don't talk about it and bring it out into the physical world in some way, we will forget it. So I think that's really important. Even reading spiritual books makes you sleepy sometimes. Like sometimes it's so hard to stay awake and you'll read the same line over and over again because the energy of these topics are so deep that it takes a lot of conscious talking about them to not completely forget them and sleep on them. So that's the first thing I would say is ask her questions, get her talking. I also think that there might have to be private spiritual experiences that she has. You know, if we're in a society that's full of people who have forgotten, I think that there is that level of talking about it and community that's so important. But I also get this intuitive feeling of private experiences with her own guides and her own practice. I think that this is a great age too. It's not saying that she has to do oracle card pulls or things like that, but I think it's a great age to see what lights her up, what excites her, anything that keeps these kids in the energy of imagination, play, empathy, co-creation, but also stillness and silence to receive is really important. So I think something that is maybe a unique practice for just you and her, I think when parents bring their kids into it, it helps them not to go into the forgetting because they have this special bond with their parent to do their practices together. I also feel intuitively like time in nature and time with animals is really important. I don't know why working with horses is coming up, but I just feel like there's this sense of being in nature, being with animals, not letting her get plugged into this matrix of looking for her self-worth through what we've been sold to look through our self-worths through. So I think that you being in the remembering, you coming into your wise one era helps buoy her, talk about the Taurus Scorpio polarity, helps buoy her into we're going to live in earth, but we're not going to forget. We're not going to numb, and we're not going to go to sleep to try to survive. We're going to stay conscious and awake, and we're going to have these conversations. And I feel like her soul can even teach you so much on your own path of remembering. And it can be so beautiful to go through this process together. And so I've been working on, and there's a lot more to go, but I've been very interested in this exact topic because I definitely went through a forgetting phase. I had to hear the call, I had to remember. And I think that's a very common trajectory. And I think there's a lot of stigma and shame around this work. It's just such a deep, complex topic. But I have heard from somebody who is a professional intuitive who never went through the forgetting. And that's Zoe Greco. She was on episode 133. Zoe Greco, she talks on that episode about how she had parents that really encouraged her and talked about it with her and encouraged her to play and to be in her power. And so I think on a level, you in this remembering phase have the exact blueprint to see, where was my forgetting? Where was my period stigmatized? Where did I care about what other people thought more than myself? Where did I give my power away? When did I stop opening up to silence? When did I disconnect from nature? When did I care more about the external than the internal? Where did I learn to value things that didn't serve me to value? I think all of the excavation that you've done on your own path will only help you make sure to see that your daughter doesn't fall down the same traps. Something I want to say about that, though, is that every single soul picks their own journey. And I feel like sometimes parents can be like, I want to do the perfect job parenting them. I want to make no mistakes. But sometimes souls come in, they're like, it's actually for my highest good to go through the forgetting. So sometimes they will go through paths and you can just be a guidepost along the way for them, but don't put so much pressure on yourself. If she goes through the forgetting, you will be there on the other side for the call and the remembering. So be gentle with yourself there too. And I wanted to say too, so there used to be a lot more mediums and psychics and intuitives who started in childhood because it used to be a lot more accepted in popular society, and it's closed down a lot now. And when I was reading Gordon Higginson's autobiography, he was talking about how his mom knew he was meant to be a medium, and he knew, and he was getting visitations and evidence and things that he couldn't have known. And he sat in her circle for many years as a kid, and he wasn't allowed to give messages. He just sat in the power and the energy and took it in and learned from the people around him. And I remember Natalie Miles, she was a guest on the podcast as well. I want to say she was episode 124. She also talked about being a kid that her mom took to psychic circles. So I think if your kid has a distinct interest in developing intuition, there might also be something there of an age appropriate, angelic, or sitting in the power, all love-based spiritual group that can maybe help her hone her gifts or remember her intuition. But I think if she ever talks about, and this is for anybody's kid, if they ever bring something up, ask them questions, verbalize that. And the last thing I want to say too is encourage her creative processes, because as I always say, intuition and creativity, imagination are sister languages. And the more that we can stay connected to our imagination, our play, our creativity, the more we stay connected to our wildness, like we were talking about women who run with the wolves, the more easily spirit can flow through us. And spirit works with us in all different ways. We don't just have to be psychic mediums for spirit to work through us. They work through us in every single way that we show up.
Yeah, I love all of this. And I know you're so passionate about this topic. So when I got this email, I was really excited to share it on the pod because it's such a beautiful thing to be a parent that is on your journey of remembering and to be able to hold space for your child's journey. And I think of anything you do, that is almost enough that you are tapped in and choosing to support her journey, as I'm sure it will take many twists and turns and she will explore this life in her own unique way. But your support and encouragement is really everything. And then, like you said, we're all on our own journeys here and we've come here to learn the things that we've come here to learn. So I think as a parent, sometimes we can want to like save our kids from those things or shield them from it. But in fact, some of that is how we develop and come home to ourselves into a deeper way. Even some of the stuff that she talked about, how she's not connecting to her peers in this moment. It's like, I think you and I both had that experience when we were younger. And while it was painful, I can see now how it was the breadcrumbs of me becoming this really unique person that feels really strong in myself and really forward thinking. And yeah, a lot of my peers weren't on the level, and that didn't make either of us wrong. It just was part of my unique makeup. And so it's cool to see that, like, now later in life, I've connected with like minded people. And part of getting there, I think, was finding that strength within myself.
Absolutely. That's such a good point. I was going to say, too, encouraging her to start a dream journal could be really powerful because the dream journal is such an important bridge between our subconscious and our conscious mind. And it works the same muscle that our intuition works, which is bringing things out from the psyche into our conscious awareness. And so I think a dream journal is a really accessible, beautiful way to work with kids too. Because it's like, what do you think that means? And how did the dream make you feel? And it can go into some deeper conversations. And I think a big part of this that's coming up too is teaching children language, going into that idea of how when these subconscious, subtle forces aren't expressed, articulated, or brought into the physical world, they're forgotten. And I think that teaching kids language to verbalize their experiences is so important. It's actually really interesting because I was just doing a casual birth chart reading for someone who has a baby. And she was like, please show me his chart and tell me how I can help him as a mom. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And his fourth house was ruled by Aquarius, and there was some other stuff that was coming up. And I was like, okay, it's going to be your instinct to deal with problems in the family privately. But what his birth chart is showing me is that he needs to see you as an example working through tough emotions, working through disagreements, not going to private rooms and crying without him there or working through things without him there, which is the instinct to make it seem like it's this happy, perfect family. But I also think that the way families deal with conflict is such a big part of the forgetting because our magic is in the shadows. I talk about that all the time. Our shadow is really our power source. And I think that it's the instinct of parents to hide the shadow from the kids. So we don't have a toolbox then to work with our own shadows, or we just look at the unhealthy coping mechanisms that our parents worked with the shadows. And I think that's a really big part of the forgetting that's coming through too, is showing your daughter how you, and this goes to everybody, showing your kid how you work through conflict, how you work through shame, how you work through disappointment, how you work through not feeling your best, how you work through feeling judged, how you work through not hitting a goal you wanted to hit. Whatever it is, I think that's a really big part of the forgetting too. Anything based in isolation and shame and shadow. And I think that when your parents give you a roadmap of a healthy toolbox to deal with those things, I think it really helps the forgetting to be either a lot less or not at all. Because I think the shadow is what really rules the forgetting. So I think even talking about the inner villain voice, giving your children language to describe their experience so they don't feel isolated and alone and have to look for their peers for validation or recognition. They can find it within themselves.
I love all that. I think that's so right on. It's like creating that space to encourage and for her to have the tools and words to talk about it and to have someone to talk about it with that's not judging and that's open to it and asking questions and giving voice to similar experiences. It helps us to be seen, and therefore it helps us to feel confident in that experience versus with our peers when we're younger. We feel judged and that makes us shut down. And so that might be happening with her peers, but you can be that source of a safe space of, let's go walk through the park and find the fairies, or what do you feel or see? All of that type of stuff is a special connection that the two of you can have, and that she'll, no matter what the outside world throws at her, she'll have that safe space with you to explore this and feel seen in it.
Absolutely. And two things. One, what you just said is so true. And the tests and the lessons and the feeling othered and the difficult relationships, that never goes away. She's experiencing this in childhood. So, what a beautiful opportunity to teach her the toolbox that will then serve her when these things happen in life. We all go through these things. And so, I think this is a chance to show her like sometimes things can work out even better than we think they will. And where are we attached to outcomes? Where do you want the kids in your grades to show up one way? Okay, they're not. What's in our control? How can we see more magic? How can we open up the world? Maybe you could find a pen pal in another country and we could go visit them. It's like starting to think in these bigger, more magical ways that then helps circumvent the forgetting, because it's like, oh, okay, I'm attached to this outcome. My inner villain voice is telling me this, but how can I create magic right now? What is in my control? How can I be creative? How can I go out into nature? And I think that that is going to ultimately lead to these children who are living lives that people are like, wait a minute, I want to live that life. I can't even be mean to this person or bully this person because look at, they're so ahead of their time, like living this magical life. The other thing I was going to say is as I'm starting to create this workshop, which is helping spiritually gifted kids not forget. So I love this question that it's really coming up. And I think every kid to a certain level is spiritually gifted. It's just that some care more than others. Like some kids are like, I could care less about this. And some kids are like, I could really care and I'm really connected and this is really cool. And so I think also the parents that are really into this stuff, like the kids choose these parents for a reason. So it's not that all kids don't have the ability to be spiritually gifted. I think some are just on the trajectory to explore it more. And so what I was going to say, as I was sitting down to work on this workshop, and it's still in very early days, a big part of helping your kid circumvent the forgetting or go through a lighter forgetting is healing your own witch wound. The witch wound is something that is passed down from generation to generation. And if you aren't familiar, check out episode 103. I do a deep dive on it. And again, my Healing the Witch Wound workshop is so important. You can find it on angelsandamethyst.com, code 333 for $33 off. It will change your life. But when we heal our own witch wound, we cycle break for the future generations. So if you're listening to this and you're doing that work, you're already changing your child's perception about the spirit world, about power, about being powerful, being heard, being seen, being inconvenient, all of those things. And so by you healing your witch wound and stepping into your witchiness, it's already making it so that future generations won't have to go through such an intense forgetting.
Yes, I love that point. It's so true. And something that came up as you were saying that too is I feel like part of what's coming up with this listener, and we emailed back and forth a couple times, and I want to share the last email as well that she responded. But I think part of it is her fear that maybe comes out of her witch wound around then what her daughter will face. It's like, I've faced this and I don't want my daughter to face it. Or I'm afraid of this response with these gifts and I want to shield my daughter from it. And that's so, understandable. But I do think is an element of the witch wound rearing itself. And I think is another opportunity to really trust. Like your daughter has come in very tapped in and tuned in, and she is going to be able to navigate these things like you have with even more help from you. And it was really beautiful. We followed up with each other and she responded with kind of another question, telling me that she was leaving notes in the garden for her daughter from the fairies and kind of helping her pretend, and that she was having some fear around eventually my daughter will know I left the notes. And will that break this illusion for her? Or will that shatter her idea that fairies are real, knowing that I left the notes? And so I kind of responded saying, I think you can trust in her. And she got back to me and told me, you are exactly right, what you said. And I had such a great moment from spirit around it because my daughter came to me and told me that when she was leaving the school, she saw some of the younger children playing in the garden and talking to the fairies and building little homes for the fairies. And she told her mom, I left them a note from the fairies and I saw them get it and they were so happy. And so it was just like this beautiful full circle moment of trust, I think, in your daughter, knowing that, yes, she's a child and she's going to navigate these things, but she's got this and your help will only make it easier on her. But don't worry too much that she won't be able to navigate it because she will, and she is.
Yes. And also, I want to add to this conversation, who isn't saying that your angels and guides aren't directing those letters that you're writing? Who isn't to say that there's not an element of channeled writing within that your daughter is then picking up on and creating magic in the world for other people? It's like, just because I'm pulling cards or giving messages or giving email readings for people, how is that different than you writing beautiful messages from spirit for your daughter to find in the garden? I think that that's such a beautiful practice. And I think we're missing enchantment and whimsy. And that's like an offshoot of imagination, creativity. So I think you creating that for her is awesome. And if she ever questions you about that, be like, yeah, my fairies wanted me to write that for you. I think that's really beautiful.
That's such a beautiful way to reframe it. And yeah, I think it's so true. It's like we choose to believe in fairies, even though we can't necessarily see them. We choose to believe in the magic around us, even though we can't maybe like weigh it and measure it and point to it, which in the past has caused us to dismiss it. But it's such a bolder choice or such a more magical choice to choose to believe. And I think she's already doing that. And exactly like you said, those messages are from the fairies in a way, or are from our angels and guides. Just because you physically penned them doesn't mean that energy isn't from there.
Exactly. And I think also what I'm hearing in this question is her showing you a deeper opportunity for healing. Because where might you be attached to it has to look exactly this way? And where might there be a trajectory for your daughter that's more beautiful than you could plan for yourself? Like Claire said, I think it's so understandable, this want to shield and protect. I would be so sad if I had a daughter who went through the bullying that I went through. I really understand that. But at the same time, like Claire also said, we turned out to be badasses because we learned to rely on ourselves and we weren't like one of the crowd. And so I think that this society can be very cruel to people who are old souls and compassionate and have big hearts. And as an Aquarius moon, I'm sure you can relate to that because people who have Aquarius placements can often feel like the black sheep or misunderstood or very alone. But that's also because there's a connection to authenticity with Aquarius energy. And I think that authenticity is the whole point of what we are doing here as souls in a physical body, is to authentically and powerfully explore this slice of consciousness. And so I think that this repeating of a pattern, or maybe that isn't the right way of saying it, but you afraid of a pattern repeating and seeing that with your daughter is an opportunity for you to practice greater trust and faith and release as well. Like I was saying before, I think you and your daughter will both be big spiritual teachers for each other on your remembering path.
I love that. Something really beautiful my mom would always say to me. She said, I think we think that when we have children, we're here to teach and guide those children and teach them what we know. And I think that's true. And she would always say, but I think our children are here to teach us things we couldn't learn on our own. And I think that's so true. I've seen that in my own life. And so I totally agree. I think the two of you are on this beautiful journey of helping each other through the remembering and connecting each other to the modern witches journey in its different elements, and sharing and showing each other all sorts of ways that you can deepen and grow and expand. So I just think it's so beautiful that the two of you have each other, and I'm so grateful that you sent in this message.
Absolutely. And I think anything that your child is going through on the scale of being in school or things like that has a deeper potential for a lesson in the outside world as well. And I think reaching into your own spiritual toolbox and breaking down the energetics of it and helping them to do the same could be really powerful. Whether they want money to buy something, it's like, okay, yes, how can we manifest this money? How can we create momentum to work with? How can we get this money to come into us? I just feel like there's so many beautiful ways to help your child see things in a way that's much more full of potential and possibility and magic and releasing controlled outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting.
Very exciting and very cool, and so blessed that you have a daughter that you're so close with and that you share these things with. I think that's so special.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that is the greatest gift that you are giving her. Regardless of the details, that connection and love and support is all we can hope for to give our loved ones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we have maybe like a quick story?
Yes, let's do it. This is a story from Summer. Good evening. I just had to write in about the mediumship portion of this episode. I'm not sure which episode it is, but one of the past ones. My husband passed away 5 years ago in his early 30s from an overdose after struggling with drug abuse for years. Today is his sister's birthday. His name was Joey. They were extremely close, though he was a couple years older, and she has been unable to move past the intense grief of it all. And also, she was close with her grandmother who passed away years before he did. I know they are there together watching over her, and he immediately told me I had to send the episode to her. I was hesitant at first because it's such a painful topic for her, but I sent it, and she was incredibly grateful as she had been struggling all day. I'm also psychic, and once I talked to her, he came through super strong and was able to give her a further message, and it was incredibly powerful and cathartic for her. I just want to say thank you so much for everything you do, not just the podcast, but in being and showing your true self and allowing others, such as myself, who have psychic gifts, to not feel as afraid to share the messages that come through. Much love, Summer.
Oh, Summer, thank you so much for this. And I'm so sorry to hear about the passing of your husband. And I think it's so beautiful that you bridged the gap for your sister in law and sent that to her and followed your own intuitive call. That's exactly what I'm talking about with our angels and guides always speaking to us. And I love that because you never know when people are silently suffering and in grief and dealing with things. And just you sending that bridge, it's like if you have that little instinct to reach out, do it because you have it for a reason. And I've been feeling that a lot personally with these little nudges and things like that. And it always is received in this way that's like, wow, I'm a little scared. As I say, fear is a necessary part of intuitive reclamation. And it's like you had that kind of like, should I send it? And then you're like, yeah, I'm going to trust the message. And that's already strengthening your muscle as an intuitive as well, because there's always this element of, should I do it? Oh, scary to actually say it or whatever. So I'm really proud of you for doing that. And that's such a beautiful story. And it also just shows that spirit gets the messages to us in sometimes really roundabout ways. I remember really early on in my development, my guides were like, we want you to do free Instagram readings for people. Where I don't know if you remember this, Claire, but I would go on my stories and I would give maybe 10 pieces of evidence for somebody in the spirit world. And if someone could take it 100%, I would give them a free mediumship reading when I was still really early on in my development. And there was a time with that I gave pieces of evidence, and this girl is like, that is my grandfather. Like, I can take every single part of it, up to a cat broke his left leg multiple times. Like, she could take everything. So I sat with her, and he immediately came through and just wanted to talk about her mom and was showing me her mom in the attic, cleaning out old boxes, crying over his old stuff and feeling really alone. And she could validate that her mom had been in his house in the attic, cleaning old boxes and really in a grief spiral. And he had so many beautiful messages for her about her life and him and who he was with in the spirit world. And it just turned out to be such a beautiful connection, especially because I was very early on in that time. And she told me, like, you know what, Taylor, like, you actually saved my mom's life because she has been feeling so alone. She's been begging for a sign from her dad and feeling like she's not getting them. And it came from her granddaughter seeing my Instagram story, then recording the message for her. It's like the messages from the grandpa weren't even really for who I was reading. It was all for the mom. And so it was so interesting and so beautiful because that story really proved to me that our loved ones in spirit, when we are malleable and flexible and open, will find such beautiful ways for the message to get to us. And so I think that is also like going back to that bibliomancy idea. If you're missing a past loved one, you can also be like, what do you want me to know? And open a book and see what the story is. And there might be some synchronicity there for you. So I love what you're saying, Summer. And I love that you created that link and then got even deeper connection from it because even more came through for her. So I think that's so beautiful. And I just love this story so, so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Summer. We're just sending you all our love. I know that it must be such a painful experience to lose someone like that. And I'm grateful that the two of you have each other because that's always such a beautiful thing about marriage or relationships, right? It's like my brother's wife, and I think I'm closer with my brother's wife even than I am with my brother. And I didn't do anything to create that relationship. He found this woman and fell in love with her, and now I get a sister in her that I will have for life. And so, what a beautiful thing that the two of you can lean on each other and that you can help her. And I'm sure she helps you. And for her to be able to hear that her grandmother and her brother are together and with her and sending her love is such a beautiful thing. So I'm just really happy that you guys had that experience and that we were a part of it in any way.
Yeah, exactly. I love that so much. And thank you for being an earth angel for your sister in law and for the world. I just love this community so much. It's so special. And I'm so grateful. And everybody who writes in, like, you can just feel the beauty and the kindness and the grace and the magic from every single one of you. So we're just so grateful for this community.
Yeah, absolutely. We really feel your love, and all of your messages are just so beautiful and vulnerable and heartfelt. And it creates a deeper connection with all of us when you're willing to share yourself like that. And so, yeah, I'm just so grateful for you all. Thank you for sharing your hearts with us.
Yes. So let's transition now to sitting with spirit. Hello, beautiful hummingbirds. Are you looking for more angelic connection in your life? I highly recommend my Be Your Own Angelic Intuitive workshop. This is such a beautiful course to take if you are newer on your spiritual journey, if you're curious about intuitive connection, if you want to work with angels, but you just don't know where to start. I give a comprehensive look at working with angels, how to connect with them deeper, how to work with cards, how to identify your strongest clairs. My students have reported on such magical and beautiful connections since their time with the course began. You can find it at angelsandamethyst.com, and code 333 gives $33 off. This is a 3-part workshop series that is pre-recorded and go at your own pace. But if you have any questions about the workshop material, you can always email me at taylor@angelsandamethyst.com. This course will also be part of the prerequisites if you are interested in my Becoming the Oracle mentorship that will be launched later in the summer to launch in the fall. Do not wait. If you have been called, if you've been seeing a bunch of synchronicities and angel numbers, I always say that's your angels asking you to connect with them deeper. And this is such a supportive, integrous, and magical container to do just that. Welcome back to Sitting with Spirit, my loves, the part of the podcast where I sit with our angels, our guides, our loved ones in the spirit world, and give the messages for the collective. As always, take what resonates with you, leave the rest. And if you know somebody who could benefit from these messages, please send the podcast their way. Before I get into the angel messages for the week, I feel really called to share a message that just came through in my last client session before I started recording this today. I had a really beautiful client session, and we were talking about some inner child stuff with her and how growing up in the family structure she was in, it didn't feel safe to really communicate or share or even feel her big feelings with the family around her because everyone was already in crisis. There was a lot of narcissism and just a lot of things like that. So her inner child learned that she had to hide and intellectualize her emotions and push things down, and that it wasn't safe to really feel them. So she and I were talking about that and going deep into it and the reasons why. And her angels were bringing up a lot of layers, which layers is actually a theme for this Sitting with Spirit. So we'll get into that in a bit. But there was something she said at the end of the session that, with all of my talk on this podcast about inner child healing and inner child work, that really felt important to share. She said, "It makes me so sad that my inner child is heartbroken inside of me. That makes me so upset and sad and makes me feel like I've failed her." And her angels said, "No, no, no, no. Your inner child is not sad and heartbroken. Your inner child is showing you old sadness and wounding that needs to be felt for your integration and release and happiness. But your inner child is just fine." So I think it's important to know we can sometimes get into these stories that can go to making things mean things that they don't really mean. So if you are hearing all of the messages that I'm giving about inner child healing, it makes perfect sense why you would then go to, my inner child isn't healed. My inner child is in pain. XYZ. But in reality, we're the ones in pain. And our inner child is a spirit guide. It's a part of our psyche whose job is to connect us back to our authenticity and our humanity. Our inner child is like, hey, 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 you're trying to avoid and numb and run, but there's actually something really sad that's never been felt, or my basic need isn't being met in XYZ way. So it's not our inner child who's suffering, it's us suffering by not listening to the important, deep, rich and valuable messages that our inner child has to give to us. So I really hope that distinction makes sense. And I just wanted to say that it's not like there's another wounded thing that you have to worry about and that your inner child is miserable inside of your heart space. That is not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about inner child healing. Your inner child is showing you wounded aspects of your experience to help you get the lesson and the message so that you can move forward in a more joyful, authentic way. And this is something else that came up in the session. Once you get the message, the messenger can stop delivering it. What I mean by this is to bring it to mediumship as an example. If you listen to my episode, I want to say it was episode 133 with Tiff, we talk about haunted locations and things like that. And I got this message in that episode that if you're somebody who spirit is trying to contact, they will do things to show you that, whether it's flickering the lights, messing with the electricity, visiting you in the dream world, opening a cabinet. And then we can get so scared and be like, oh my gosh, we're haunted. And we project all these negative things. But really, the message might be like, hey, I'm with you, or you're loved, or you have mediumship potential, or there's a message that I didn't get the chance to give to you that I want to get to you. So it's like the way that spirit is getting people's attention in the physical world. But the message that I got about that is once the message is received, all of that stops. And that's how I feel about our emotions as messengers, like anxiety, depression, fear, scarcity, sadness, grief, guilt. These are all messengers. And our inner child is one of our delivery systems of the messengers. It's just a part of our consciousness and psyche that's uncomplicated by societal conditioning. It's like our pure human essence distilled to that authentic frequency when we were still a kid without everything else telling us how we have to be. And so once you get the inner child's message, it can stop. It doesn't have to be so intense forever. But so many of us spend so much time playing judge and jury over our head, convincing ourselves that we're happy or we're okay, and not actually listening to the truth of what our heart has to say. So I felt really called to share that because not only is it synchronistic with the angel messages that came through for this week, but it's just important to note that we're the ones that are suffering, not our inner children, if we don't listen to them. They are really showing us aspects of deeper potential for healing, and that's a gift. The next thing kind of plays off of this. The message that I got for this week and for this time period in general is that the energy is really layered right now. It is very emotionally complicated, and it's a mix of things like joy, grief, guilt, sadness, happiness, expansion, contraction. There's so many layers to the energy, and there's so many layers to trigger points and things that are coming up to get our attention. And so, like I was saying before, I believe that all emotions are messengers. They're not the truth of who we are. They are messengers about what wants to be felt and integrate or understood about our experience. And so, something that was coming through to me about this layered energy is that we try so hard to always be okay, always be at the takeaway, the lesson at the end of the journey, always looking for the expansion on the physical world. But I think the energetic strategy for these complicated times is the let them theory with our own emotions. So let me explain. The let them theory is basically this idea of somebody wants to break up with you, let them. Somebody is telling you that you need to do XYZ thing or else they're going to threaten this thing, let them. It's taking your power back and no longer fighting, forcing, begging, pleading, debating. There's an element, of course, speaking your truth, getting to the bottom of things. Like I think sometimes on the other end of the spectrum with the let them theory is that we still need accountability. We still need foundations. We still need responsibility. But I think that's been taken way too far because we're really scared of change and the unknown, and we can be rooted in scarcity consciousness. And so the message for these emotionally complicated times is the let them when it comes to our emotional messengers. Too many times we have anxiety or depression or fear or rumination or scarcity consciousness or anger. And I think this can really stem to this idea of when we have big emotions as kids too, our parents immediately want to make us feel better. There's a lot of subconscious programming about it's not convenient, safe, or acceptable or celebrated to feel big feelings. And as a Scorpio, sun in the eighth house and moon in the eighth house, I know all about that. And so I think that we can form our own Pandora's box around our bigger emotions because we're like, whoa, it is not safe to fully feel these. And I don't know if I can ever get out from the depths of them. But my message here this week is the let them theory. So if you have an uncomfortable emotional messenger coming up, let it. Don't immediately try to love and light yourself out of it. Debate with it. Play judge and jury in your head. Well, yeah, I feel rage, but I shouldn't because actually they didn't mean it this way. And actually this and that. And you start to talk yourself out of your emotion. You're gaslighting your own emotional experience. And who are you playing judge and jury against? Your higher self that's showing you a kernel of emotional truth. And then you feel lost and stuck and foggy. But the message is right there. You're just talking yourself out of it, or it doesn't feel safe to see it. This doesn't mean co-create with the uncomfortable emotional messengers. It means let them get you the message. Stop trying to run or debate or hide or talk over them. So if you're feeling really anxious, like that, sit with that anxiety. Let it give you its message. Maybe journal around it. Maybe ask it where it lives in your body and take some deep breaths and feel into it. Get curious about maybe the last time you felt anxiety like this in your life and start to just sit with these messengers and let them reveal what wants to be revealed through them. No more running from the emotions that our brain have judged as not good. They're valuable. There's value in every single emotional messenger. And if you have a lot of trauma and intensity and that you feel like the let them theory with these emotions might be too difficult for you to do it alone, as always, run everything I say through the barometer of your own heart space. And if you need to do this work in a professional healing space, please do. But this is just a message saying, do not beat yourself up if the energy feels complicated right now. Do not beat yourself up if you have emotional messengers that are on high alert. Let them give you the message without trying to run. Make it easier for them because once you get the message, it can stop. It can lighten up. That being said, as I continued to tune into the energy this week, I really saw the fire element as being important. And I saw holding this little candle. It was like a little happy yellow and orange flame amongst a lot of shadow. And I just got this feeling of like shining your light in the shadows, feeding your inner flame, doing the things that light you up, feeding your passions, all of that warmth, that love, that inspiration, that light that the flame brings feels so healing and in alignment. And I know it might feel like a tiny little flickering flame amongst a lot of unknown or shadow in the world and as a whole, but you are just responsible for your little flame. And if everybody tends to their little flame, the world will be such a bright place. So keep tending to your little flame. And maybe that flame will turn into a big flame. I'm not trying to be condescending with that language, but I just mean little in the sense of there are billions of people in the world, and little in terms of relative to the entire planet, not little in terms of light or power or how you can shine. So going back to this idea of energetically layered times, I think that this is throwing our mind, body, soul into a little bit of confusion. It feels like we might be up and down a little bit. Like some days feel really exciting and hopeful, and other days feel a little bit constricting and scary. A lot of us are experiencing self doubt because we're breaking out of comfort zones. And I always say that's a good thing if you experience self doubt because it means you're edging out of an uncomfortable comfort zone. But I feel like through these transitionary times and complicated times and energetically layered, and what I mean by energetically layered means like our personal experience, the collective experience, our relationships with other people. And then in between all of that are like childhood triggers, insecurities, shadows popping up, soul lessons and themes. It's not just one thing right now. It's like a lot of layers to the lessons, the themes, the growth. It's being mirrored in so many ways, and it's very energetically complicated. Like in my readings lately, I've had a few clients where it's like we are only talking about one question because that question has so many sub layers that I need to break down energetically so that they can understand them. Or else they're like in this rut feeling so stuck and like this one subject is larger than life. But it's actually because there's 6 to 8 layers of that subject that got it to this place. And that's what I feel collectively. It's like this accumulation. It's like this master class where it'd be so easy if it was just one layer, but it's a lot of layers. So that's why I'm saying your emotions are on high alert right now because they have information for you that's valuable about all the layers. And so, with all the layers, I felt like it was creating a really perfect avenue for our inner villain voice to be going ham right now. And if you're not familiar with my work, if this is the first time you're tuning in, welcome. And the inner villain voice is that inner critic voice, but I call it the inner villain voice because if you say it in like an over the top, Dr. Evil Disney villain voice, you can see how ridiculous what it says is. But when it's in your head as this subconscious current force, it seems so real because it's perfectly tailored to like your worst fears and insecurities and ancestral wounds. So I feel like our inner villain voice is taking us to really dark places in our thoughts. And this is where I remind you that we are not our thoughts. We are not our emotions. Those are all messengers. So be the observer, keep feeding the flame. And it doesn't mean by being the observer, we are bypassing it, not feeling it, not listening to it. We're actually giving it more love. We are just not believing it. So it's not like we are observing from a cold, aloof place. We're observing from an infinitely loving, compassionate, understanding place. And that's the place that real healing with ourselves can begin. With that being said, I do feel like this is causing energetic heaviness in our physical bodies as well. Like I said, the layered energy of the collective through these times, through like all the retrogrades and all the planets changing signs. It's just 2025, 2026 are energetically layered times. We're seeing it on the micro, we're seeing it on the macro. This is sending our emotions, our physical body into a little bit of a haywire place. Life might not feel real. We might feel a little ungrounded. We might feel a little more fatigued. We might be a little bit more burnt out or overwhelmed or easily overwhelmed. And then our mind is like, I don't get it. Why would I be overwhelmed? I rested yesterday. And that's how the head is trying to talk us out of our true emotional experience. So if the fatigue is coming up, let it. Sit with the fatigue, indulge the fatigue, listen to the fatigue, love the part of you that judges your fatigue. Look at all of it because I think it's like a really powerful opportunity to get even deeper into our self-love journey, the ritual of self-love that is life in a human body. So that being said, I also saw my symbol of moving on or moving away from something. And that symbol for me is a little sailboat drifting off into the distance. And with that, I felt like it ties into the layered energy that there are complex emotions coming up because everything is so layered. There are complex emotions coming up that are keeping us from moving away, from moving into new energetic territory. And it's keeping us like anchored to this dock point that we know we've outgrown, that we know is not really serving us. So there's also this feeling of feeling the complex emotions, working through things so that you can cut the cords of those sneaky, deeper layers of the energy and fully, once and for all, move forward, move into new energetic territory. And then the last symbol I saw was a tornado. And that's my symbol for things that are out of our control, more layered energy, and just really needing to find the eye of the storm. Find the eye of the storm, your silence, your stillness, your love, your observation of the energetic patterns, your compassionate curiosity for your own journey, your kindness for yourself and others. And just know there is going to be stuff that's out of our control, of course, but how can we do the best with what's in our control? So I want to move into the mediumship now. I had a young male in the spirit world. I want to say he was around late 30s, early 40s when he passed. And he passed while his wife was pregnant. And I felt like she was pregnant with a girl. I got this feeling of him being so in love with his wife. There's so much warmth there. There's like this protective energy there. And I feel like his passing would have been a shock. I heard the name Jason, and that could be his name. It could be, I also felt like he had a son too, but it also might be someone he knows. And I got this feeling of him being really protective. He showed me an image of sleeping in the freezing cold with lots of fans running. And I didn't know if that was him or his wife. And then he also showed me gifting his wife. It kind of looked like a long rectangular necklace, something where it was like stones going down or a gold pendant going down. It was almost like long and rectangle and went downwards. I couldn't really narrow in on the exact shape. Feeling is my main clair. I could feel that it was long and draped down, and there was something significant about that necklace. I felt so much love from him. I wasn't sure how he passed, but he gave me the feeling of I can't feel my legs. And then he also showed me that he would have passed around the time of his wife being 3 months pregnant. This message that he gave, a lot of spirits want to tack on to in case this is a similar situation that anyone's lived or knows somebody who's lived, which is like this deep grief of the people left behind that they never got to know their baby. And to that, he says, I did get to know her. I held her while she was in spirit before she came into physical form. And there's something like that I have such deep chills as I'm talking about that. And there's so much love and sadness and grief that I feel around this topic and the collective. But there is this sense of my soul knows her soul, and I prepared her for this life. Like I sent her in an extra something to take care of you. So I think that that is just so beautiful. He also was showing me that he's very involved in his son's life as well. And he was showing me his son just needing to get a cavity filled as a way for who this is for to know I really am around. He also makes me feel like he's with a grandmother in the spirit world, his dad's mom. And he gave me a feeling that his wife is going to have another kid with someone else and that he wants that. And so this is a two-part message. One is that he knows his daughter already from their time passing in the spirit world. But there's another aspect of this of I want you to have more love, not less. I don't want you to live in guilt and grief over my passing or about moving on. Like it is healing for me in the spirit world to see you living your most lit up, loving life. And I will help you find the next person that will love you in this next chapter. So there's something so beautiful and healing about that. And I feel like he's even sitting with your future daughter with that next partner. So this is just to say it truly is all love. It truly is all love. Like they don't want you sitting in some sort of shrine to their memory, not letting life progress and evolve and move forward. There's so much gratitude and love for the time that you had together in this physical world. And the other part of this message is time works differently in the spirit world. It's a lot slower for us here on earth in a physical body. And to him in the spirit world, it's literally the blink of an eye before he gets to see you again. And that's the feeling too. And I feel a lot of loved ones wanting to tack on to this is like, we're more concerned about you enjoying the time you have here on earth because we will be reunited with you by our perception in the blink of an eye. So don't worry about us. Don't worry about anything. Take care of doing your own work and healing and rebuilding so that you can enjoy your life and maximize love in your life because that is what we're here to do. And they are cheering us on to do that. And especially this past partner in the spirit world feels very doting, very attentive, and very protective. And he sees everything that's going on with his family. And you will always be his family in this world and the next. And whether you create a family with someone else as well does not take that away. It's like in the spirit world, there's no scarcity. There's only adding on to the love. There's only adding on to the love. So I really hope these messages are helpful. I'm sending you all so much love through these layered energetic times. And I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful week.
For more information on Taylor and her work, go to angelsandamethyst.com or connect with her on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. She is the one verified account with this name and will never DM you for a reading. If you have any questions about intuition, spirituality, angels, or anything and everything magical, please email contact@magichourpod.com. We will answer listener questions once a month in our solo episodes. Are you an aligned business owner that would like to advertise to our beautiful hummingbird community? Please email contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss the magic. And don't forget to leave us 5 sparkling star reviews. They help more magical people find the pod. Please screenshot and email your 5-star reviews to contact@magichourpod.com, and we'll send you a free downloadable angelic meditation and enter you to win an angel reading with Taylor Page. If you review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, we'll add your name twice. And if you share the podcast on your Instagram story and tag us, we'll add your name a 3rd time. The next giveaway will happen when we hit 222 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
Thank you for listening to Magic Hour with Taylor Page. Remember, you are magic.